Okay,
I
everybody keeps asking what Redux is. I'm just gonna change it to redo.
Lol. What does Redux mean? Word too complicated.
Redux and redo are very similar. Redux would be like talking about the things that was in the last podcast. Redo means we're redoing the last podcast. Jinx and I have had a conversation on whether or not we're redoing or reduxing because
Lol.
the previous podcast still exists, yet we didn't upload it to YouTube. And so we're redoing it because I didn't feel like I was engaged enough. Jinx thinks it's a redo because he only cares about the YouTube and it doesn't exist on the
Haha.
YouTube. Therefore, we are only redoing it. And there's your fucking podcast opener. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast. I hope you know I'm adding that entire thing in there.
That's why I said, and there's the podcast opener.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. We've got balloons on in the background because the last game. Okay, so full disclosure, this is the second time we've done this podcast with this topic list, but I was thoroughly engaged with Rogue Legacy 2 because it is a good game, and I could not help but feel I wasn't properly engaged.
Fuck! I just found like a brainless game we could have done as well for background stuff.
Okay, no, listen. Bloons is quite possibly the most brainless game I could be playing. So
I mean, that's fair. And the other one might be a bit too distracting from the perspective of stuff happening.
Yeah.
But 100% orange juice is literally a pure fucking RNG game. I don't care what anyone says about skill being involved. 100% orange juice is just rolling dice and praying shit happens.
Listen, no, I think everyone would love to see us play Mario Party, frankly.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think that should be like a thing where we're just doing that, not some kind of podcast over it. It's just you and me played fucking Mario Party, and I don't know, we could grab a couple other random people, but
yeah. Or we could start an Ark Survive server and just fucking mine and farm berries.
Well, you never got to play Valheim.
Huh? I did not know.
And for what it's
Problem
worth,
is, since it's a new game I'm learning, it would not be a good podcast background because I'd be too distracted with shiny things to learn.
And for what it's worth, I did want to do No Man's Sky with you someday.
Okay. Yeah, No Man's Sky is a pretty brainless background thing, honestly.
And Minecraft also had an update. Not that yeah. There's not enough direction in Minecraft, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the big
some
issue.
people,
you can try to clear the Nether and beat the boss and all that shit, but yeah, it's too much of a Lego kit.
Yeah. And some people really like that, and I really appreciate that. You know, that they like that, and that's what they like, and but for me, it's too open. That's why I like Terraria so much, because it's the same. Same open kind of gameplay.
But
you choose.
There's a much more clear story progression you can go through.
Yes, yeah, they're clear story
and
beats. Somebody's gonna come in and be like, "Excuse me, there's clear story paths in Minecraft. You have to do this, then you go to this place, then you do this. You take these, and you put them here." And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
And I honestly, in my opinion, the whole make your own fun, Lego kit sandbox style gaming is incredibly overrated. In my opinion, because I really enjoy, we've talked about this before, right? The two things I like the most about video gaming as a medium is the fact that that you can have all these interesting complex systems you get to learn and optimize and work with, fun game mechanics, interesting strategies, all that kind of stuff, the game side of it, but also that it is has so many unique strengths as a storytelling or narrative medium. And to me, these kinds of open, make your own adventure, Skyrim-esque kind of games are just kind of lazy on the narrative side. It feels like the developer's basically throwing a bunch of shit at you and saying, "All right, now make your own fun." You're like, "Aren't I paying you to give me a fun experience?" No, make your own fun.
Right.
Go find your own story and do your own things. But I have friends, I can play D&D. No, go make your own fun.
Yeah. And it is basically giving us a tech demo and then calling it a game. It's actually one of my I hate to call it criticism because I do like Breath of the Wild, but I feel like Breath of the Wild is very sparse as far as story goes.
Yeah, it is very much a make your own story
But
kind of
it
thing
was
from what I've heard
essentially a
about it.
tech demo that they added some bare bones Zelda elements to and
Yeah,
shipped it off as a Zelda game.
yeah.
Not that I don't think it's good, because I really enjoyed my time in Breath of the Wild. I think it's, a really, really, really good game. But I do feel like it's just a tech demo.
Yeah, but like it being a tech demo, it has those at least has some mechanics and carry it.
Yeah.
The reason I mentioned Skyrim specifically is because Skyrim is not that great from a mechanical standpoint.
Oh, well,
It really is
never,
not.
no
The
Elder Scrolls game has
no Elder
been
Scrolls
good.
ever has like at the very least like Oblivion at least had the interesting aspect of like the magic creation system at
Yeah.
least. Like there was some interesting systems in there, but like there's really
Rest in
nothing
peace, hand-to-hand combat.
right? Yeah, RIP hand to hand. Especially at higher difficulty levels, but like Skyrim does
Alright,
not have
streamer, if
nearly
you go
interesting
to the
enough
Thieves
systems.
Guild and you grab the hands of boxing and then use a Khajiit and then also use heavy armor with the ability that gives you your melee punches extra damage, you can make a totally viable
Yeah, now
hand-to-hand
tell me how that works at level 30 plus legendary. Tell me how your 80 damage hits how good your 80 damage hits are at fucking level 30 plus legendary.
streamer, then you just go into a sneak build and then you just get
Yeah, exactly. Fuck you. Anyway. But yeah, yeah, it's just like Minecraft I think might be a bad example on that side cuz Minecraft does have the interesting systems at play, right? Like, yeah, you have the creative side of it, but you also have all the interesting redstone stuff. You have ways you can abuse like the physics and the systems and things like that. That kind of make it interesting from a pure mechanical standpoint.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a lot of these AAA sandboxes coming out, a lot of like Skyrim especially, like the mechanics, the like raw gameplay. The problem I kept running into playing like the Far Cry games. I really wanted to play through all of Far Cry 5 because the story is really interesting to me.
Mhm.
But like the bare bone mechanics were so goddamn boring to me because like it's not even very good shooter mechanics to start with.
Mhm.
And then it's just fucking like sneaky base assault bullshit the entire time, and like you don't even get anything that makes doing that more interesting, really.
Mhm.
Like, it's not like at least in, like, the Infamous games and shit, when you're doing, like, the district liberation stuff, you get new powers and stuff, and you can figure out new strategies by combining different powers or using different skill sets or whatever, so it's kinda neat. But, like, Far Cry is just like, I pull out my sniper rifle, I click a few heads, I go into my AR, everyone's dead, yay, clap hands, move on to the next fucking one.
Well, and then see, I liked Just Cause 2 because
Yeah,
even though it had that bullshit, like you go unlock the base, you go to the thing, you could ride on top of a car and fly around on a parachute, and it was
yeah.
fun.
Just Cause had fun mechanics about it. Plus, you had the
Yeah,
fucking like grappling hook shit where
yeah,
you could attach shit to shit.
yeah. And I never actually played a Just Cause after Just Cause 2. I heard Just Cause 3 was kind of bad. I
Yeah,
don't,
the last one I played was also Just Cause 2. So
so I don't know. I might give it a try someday, but
yeah,
that was a completely just uh spill of what do they call it, the train of thought, or what did they say that they
stream
like,
of consciousness.
yeah, stream of consciousness,
Yeah,
that was completely nothing of that was on the paper, but
I mean that's fine though.
yeah.
Like I said before the podcast, or before we started recording this or streaming this, is that like recently I've been like watching more of Giguk stuff.
Mhm.
Who is like a pretty prolific like anime YouTuber.
I
And
have opinions on Giguk. Would you
Yeah,
like to
I
hear
don't
my opinions on Giguk?
sure, because I don't really like, I've only just recently really started watching his stuff, so I don't really know much about him.
uh Giguk Giguk stole everything he had from Demolition D, and it's a goddamn tragedy.
Lol. I don't even know who that is.
Demolition D 10 years ago, almost, not even, maybe not 10 years ago, but a
Yeah.
long, long, long time ago,
I mean, I
started
know
doing a
Giguk's been, like,
series.
doing YouTube for about 10 years now, but yeah.
Started doing a series called summer anime reviews,
Sure.
fall anime reviews, and they were total jokes. It wasn't like even serious.
Yeah.
And then he stopped doing them for like a year or two because I don't know, he just disappeared off YouTube. Didn't want to do it anymore, I guess.
Yeah. Had other shit going on or something.
Yeah, a little shit going on or whatever. And Giga was just like, it's free real estate. And just started doing them. And
I mean, to be fair though, like that doesn't bother me in the slightest because that's this industry.
yeah, no, I know it's the
Also, you
industry.
know, coming from, like,
it's a damn shame that like I mean, Demolition D is successful on Twitch.
Yeah.
He is. But like when you compare how successful Giga is to compared to how successful Demolition
Sure.
D is, when Demolition D paved the way for him
I
to
mean,
just,
yeah, but you can make the same argument for MySpace and Facebook.
I mean,
It doesn't really matter if you're the first. It matters when you're the first who does it.
okay, well,
who
like
does it
MySpace and
really
Facebook
well.
are multi-million billion-dollar corporations. Well, I guess not MySpace was ever a billion, but
Yeah.
Demolition D's one guy.
I know, I'm just saying, like, there's nothing really original under the sun at the end of the day. The stuff we do isn't really any different from the format of, like, any MMO min-maxer YouTube sort of thing, you know?
I know. It was pretty unique
Yeah.
to Monster Hunter when we started.
I mean, it was specifically unique to Monster Hunter, and that's what gave us that niche appeal that allowed us to build, was the fact that we were really the only ones doing mathematically optimized min-maxing. Like, people would give set recommendations and shit and builds and whatnot, but, like, we were the only ones who were like, yeah, no, we crunched the math. There's nothing that has a higher EFR than this.
Yep.
And, I mean, although real talk, like, that was what we, like, did for continual growth, but, like, what we did luck the fuck out, because what gave the channel that initial boost that allowed us to ride the momentum through the meta sets and whatnot was, like, the Call of Taroth stuff.
Yeah.
Because there were literally, like, maybe, at least as far as we knew, there were maybe, like, 10 to 15 people who understood the Call of Taroth mechanics that deeply. And they were all speedrunning groups we were competing against.
Yeah.
So none of them shared it because they were trying to fight for the world record. So there was literally no one else anywhere on the internet you could find this information publicly.
Yeah.
So, like, that was definitely, like, I'm not going to, like, minimize how important that was. If the Call of Taroth stuff had never happened and we had just started with metaset stuff, we would have grown much more slowly, and we probably never would have jumped into this full time when we did.
Yeah.
It was because of that huge, like, propulsion of subscribers and views from, like, the Call of Taroth stuff that we actually like, okay, maybe we can make this into something.
Yeah.
We kind of skipped that entire period most YouTubers go through in their, like, first 1 to, like, 3 years, right? Of, like, grinding out content, trying to get something that gives them that, like, big SEO jump where they can actually start being somewhat relevant.
Yeah. No, see, what the real game is right now, let me tell you. The real game is find a super popular streamer and without their permission, just start uploading their clips to YouTube. There was a channel that I saw for Moist Critical Penguin.
Yeah.
Started like, I think I started like a month ago, just uploading clips a few times a day. They're already at like 400,000 subscribers. That's all you got to do. Is if you want to start a big YouTube channel, just find your streamer that you really like. Twitch.tv/streamer. Kidding. And then just upload all their clips to
yes,
YouTube.
but, like, if you reach the point where they're like, hey, I'm DMCAing this, or hey, like, you can't keep doing
I
this,
mean,
or whatever.
if you find one that doesn't like you, but
yeah,
God, there was a
yeah, if
channel.
you can't, like, the issue with those kinds of channels is that, like, the only reason people subscribe or watch is because of that content, right? So if you try to transition into literally anything else, you don't get any traction.
Oh yeah, no, I
Like,
know, dude, no, it's so dude, the YouTube,
I mean, like,
the YouTube algorithm is harsh. One of my favorite animators, from when I was a kid, it was this guy who Rob, I can't remember his last name, Rob, whatever. But he did a comic, or he did an animation on like the Newgrounds era. It was called like Half Beard, and he did a bunch of other animations as well. But like the one I always remember was Half Beard. It was just a guy who was shaving his face, and he like got halfway through shaving his face, literally like his nose one way, nose the other way, and he's like, I'm just gonna rock this. And he went around and just like had a half beard, and it was great. And he has like 30,000 subscribers on YouTube just from his animations, and he recently started coming back and just starting doing random streams or whatever, and legit has like 3 people. He'll upload a new animation
Yep.
and it'll have like 50 views.
Yeah, and like I
Whereas
was
like
actually
some of his
talking.
old animations had millions.
Yeah, exactly. And like I was talking. I mean, it's also the same thing with like us like transitioning to podcasting out of like hard Genshin math content, right? And like I was talking to my manager about this because like he's a music producer, and it's well known that I used to do YouTube stuff full time at my workplace. So
Really?
so people, yeah, I mean, I'm very open about it. Like I'm very open about like everything, like my mental health history and like my work history and all that other stuff at work. I don't really see any reason to hide it.
Mhm.
Um, and so like different coworkers. I mean, it's just so many people in the restaurant industry are like working on another hustle sort of thing, but this is how you pay the bills,
Right.
right? So like people want to talk to me about it just to like hear what it's like from someone who did it.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this, and I was talking about how like I've just seen so many YouTube channels that like have a viral hit or two, right? Like they'll have like a 1, 2, 3, 4 million view single video, right? And everything else is like 2,000 views.
Well, I mean, look at Herney. I mean, Herney's got more success than that, but like Herney, the guy who did the Jack Black hunting horn video,
Yeah,
that video, I don't, I wouldn't be surprised if it has over 10 million views at this point. I know it's got millions,
yeah,
and then I mean the rest of his content's not much else views. Like I mean, I think maybe like 10, 15, 20, 30,000 maybe. I haven't checked in
yeah.
a while, but pretty consistently around that. But I and I guess that actually transitions into something I wanted to talk to you about, but I had no idea if you'd be interested in this conversation at all.
Sure.
Is the concept of what makes something successful in video games. And I think about this a lot when I think about like one hit wonders, and I think about,
Do you
just what
more so mean like what makes something like what
okay,
produces success or what defines
what
success? Because those are
defines
two different
success?
those are 2 different
What
conversations.
defines success? Like
Okay.
if a video game like okay, Among Us, I guess it's
Right.
still kind of big, but let's be honest, it had like one season of mass popularity and then has largely just fucking fallen off the face of the earth. Yeah, some
Yeah.
random people still do it and some people still like it, but largely in the zeitgeist, it is gone.
Yeah.
Games like Rust, where that was the game, every streamer played that game for like another season, and then it was just, I mean, who plays Rust anymore?
Okay, so we're kind of more talking about like what produces that kind of success, not what defines
No, I
success in
do
a
mean
more ephemeral
define because,
sense.
like, can you say a game that
Oh,
has
it's
like
successful if it has like just a big upsurge for
right? If
like
they
a
make
month.
their money, but then fall off the face of the fucking planet, and then nobody ever cares about anything they ever do it again. Like, if you have one big hit, and that's all that mattered,
So a burst of a success versus like sustained
right?
success.
Because I was having this thought about like, okay, so there's bands from the '90s like, um, you know, s- uh Eve 6 or Macy's Playground or Marcy's Playground or the Toadies, who have like one really big hit, and then they just, I mean, they coast off of that and like some good stuff from the album that never made it commercially successful. And they have like a
Yeah.
small following and they can still tour and they can still do what they want to do. And then you have bands like Foo Fighters that are literally chart topping giants consistently to this day.
Yeah.
You know, obviously one is more successful, but can you still say that like there was success? And it kind of got me thinking about the same thing with video games. Is like if a game has one big hit and then nobody cares about anything else that they've done and then that was it, does it really, I don't know, is it still success? Is it still success, but is it still, I don't know, good success in a way?
I mean, it depends on what your goal is, right? It depends largely on what your goal is.
Mhm.
Because, like, that at the very least had a burst of success, right?
Mhm.
Versus something that just never gets traction. But like sustained success is very different from sustained success, I feel like comes from a very different place, right?
Mhm.
Like we can look at it like in just like YouTube terms. Sustained success comes from playing the game.
Right.
Like it comes from playing the YouTube game, right?
Right. The
Like part of the
flashy
reason why
thumbnails with the pog face and the red
with the pog face,
lines.
clickbaiting stuff,
Jinx
playing with the
said
trends.
what in the podcast?
Yeah, Jinx said
That's
what
what we
in the
should title this one.
podcast. OMG, Zhongli so OP. Like, oh my god, Yoimiya can hit fucking like 5-digit attacks, blah blah blah, kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Like it comes from playing the game, from like from like gaming the system, basically, right?
Right.
Like especially in such a competitive landscape like YouTube, and I would assume music's the same way because it's the music industry. Like it's about playing the game, and burst of success shows a burst of success. I feel like can show a lot more of the intrinsic value, but you might not necessarily capitalize on that to have that kind of sustained success.
Mhm.
Like going back to the thing of like me chatting with like one of my managers last night over a beer or whatever. Like I was telling him about how like on YouTube, even when you get like that big break, you don't really find sustained success unless you capitalize on it.
Right.
Like Magikarp used Fly, right?
Mhm.
I mean, he made videos for a while, but then like his actual champion spotlights are what got him like was like his first big break, right? And
Mhm.
so he leaned into that, and that's basically all he made for like 2 years.
Mhm.
And like now that he is, at a point where he has the fan base to be able to support himself doing the content he wants to do instead, he stopped doing that.
Right.
Because it was like he apparently like he in his words, if I recall correctly, he basically said like he enjoys doing them, but Jesus Christ, the amount of work that has to go into it like is damaging to like his life, basically.
Yeah.
So like I mean it's similar to streamers, right? Like most successful streamers play the game until they have enough of a fan base and a subscriber base that they can afford to do variety streams and shit like that.
Yeah.
Um But like, I still think that if you get that burst of success, it shows that you have something intrinsically valuable and is success. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't translate into sustained success, it's probably just because you're not willing to play the game or you didn't play the game well.
Right.
Like, you're not going to get that initial bump. 'Cause I feel like that, and like, when something goes viral, I think that that means that, especially because when something goes viral, especially for someone who doesn't like consistently have those kinds of viral numbers, right? When something goes viral, it's because there is something special about it. It's not because you were playing the game. It's not because you were maximizing your SEO. None of that. When like a 1,000 channel or 1,000 subscriber channel blows the fuck up and suddenly gets a 2 million view video, it's not because they were trying to play the game and they did a really good job with it. It's because there was something intrinsically special about that allowed it to become a viral hit.
Right. Like
And
some kind of funny
massive,
meme.
yeah. Like the
Or
best example of this I can think of is this guy I just started watching recently called Professor Lando.
yeah.
And like it was the first time I've ever been there, like physically there for the blow up moment.
Mhm.
Because Professor Lando, he's like a Twitch streamer who who basically like plays the character of being a professor at like a weeb university,
Mhm.
and like talks about stuff like furries versus monster girls and like Yaoi 101 and shit like that.
Mhm.
And like he's very entertaining. He has great production value and all of that stuff, right? But like I literally started watching this guy right as he was going from like right as he went from like 20K subscribers to over 200K in the course of a day and a half.
Oh wow.
Because something he did went viral as fuck and people poured into his YouTube channel and into his Twitch.
Yeah.
And like and then he did a good job and like actually capitalized off of that and has been seeing like continued success from that. But like something special. There was something special about the content he had out at that point that went viral that appealed to people and caused it to be spread so massively and so many other things, right?
Hmm.
So I think that does have intrinsic value. And like, my first thought when you mentioned like, the rock bands that like have a one hit wonders, but then they don't really like top charts after that.
Right.
My first thought of that is like they probably had one thing that really appealed to the mainstream, but then they didn't want to, quote unquote, sell out or whatever to like make stuff that appealed to the mainstreamers heavily for whatever reasons they might have had, or maybe they tried and just didn't do a good job with it. Who fucking knows? But like, yeah,
See,
I do
I
think
wouldn't
there
even
is
say it's
intrinsic
that
value to something
because,
like that.
like, okay, so for instance, technically speaking, Jimmy Eat World is a one-hit wonder. The guys who did
Yeah,
the middle, is it
yeah.
just take some time? DMCA'd. They are
Well,
technically a one-hit wonder, if I recall correctly. But that entire first album is fucking fire, and it's goddamn good, and it's all consistent all the way through. They just, I don't know, didn't have any fucking success.
it just didn't find traction. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
know
at the end
why.
of the day, like, it's never one thing that makes something go viral or top the charts, right? It's like a coalescence of so many fucking factors overlapping and like this perfect storm of variables,
Mhm.
right? So like, you can do the exact same thing again. And I think it's probably different with like the music scene, especially because, when it comes to like YouTube stuff, if you have like a video that goes viral, gets you 2 million views, gets you like 100,000 subscribers or some shit like that, then like if you can recreate that same magic on your content, like, with the example of Magikarp Use Fly and the actual champion spotlights, then you're likely to get continued success from that. Because now that you've captured this audience, it's just a matter of like keeping the audience, right?
Yeah.
It might be a bit different for like something like I don't know enough about the music industry to speak in any educated way on it, but
Yeah.
it might be something different for like, the music industry because if you're talking about like topping the charts, you have to have that massive wide mainstream, not just your fans appeal sort
Well,
of thing.
honestly, I wonder now with the days of music streaming, where early radio was so reliant, or early music was so reliant on the radio, and only certain songs get played because only certain people would get, paid to play the songs, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, now with music streaming, music artists can like directly give their fans the music whenever they want it.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of like unprecedented, I hate to use like Macklemore or anything because I know a lot of people don't like Macklemore, but like Macklemore created a brand entirely without any music industry. Like
Yeah.
just started it. I think Watsky also did that. And there's just been a lot of other music people that have gone sans music industry and just like given their music to people and been incredibly successful while they've been doing it. And that's not really something that's happened before. We've had radio stream or music streaming and stuff like that. So I wonder if that has a bit of play in like some of these random niche artists that have popped up because I mean,
Yeah.
I listen to all types of music and there's some of the music that's been playing I'm just like this is weird. Like this is
Yeah.
genuinely just kind of weird.
Yeah.
And you know, there's just I guess that's how people are finding music and stuff. I don't know, just a random.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. Like I can speak to some level of an educated opinion uh on YouTube, on Twitch to some extent, just through like you and whatnot.
Yeah.
At least these platforms are things that I have some degree of knowledge and experience in, but I do not know nearly enough about the music industry to do anything other than just like based off of broad assumptions generalize about things.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I'm like I do have, business consulting experience and everything, and I'm even looking at potentially I'm still not sure if I want to go into data analytics or business analytics, honestly.
Mhm.
But that's a whole different conversation or topic we can talk about in a sec because it's a huge tangent.
Mhm.
But like I have experience with consulting work and whatnot and working with, business owners and top level managers and all that kind of stuff to improve metrics and things like that. So I have like some understanding of that kind of stuff, but like yeah, I don't know enough about the music industry, honestly, to like identify I mean, that's like the $1 million question in the entire industry, right? What makes the top of the charts hit, right?
Right.
Like that is what every single record company wants to know.
Just ask Pharrell, The Dream, Michael
Yeah.
McDonald. You never heard of The Dream? He wrote Single Ladies and Umbrella.
Yeah. And I'm sure every single person in the industry has their own like pet theory on what creates that, right?
Mhm.
Like every single Hell, every single music appreciator probably has some like theory on what makes that, but at the end of the day, no one really knows.
Right. Yeah. Hey, you gotta have this, you gotta have that, you gotta have this. Yeah, but like the kids these days don't like this, they don't like that. But that's what we did in the past. Yeah, well, it doesn't matter anymore, old man. The future is now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like the only thing that all of the people who are very well educated on the subject and like qualified to have like a good opinion on the subject can agree on is that it's fucking complicated.
Right.
It's no one thing that creates success. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting stuff. Also, side point, we haven't talked about Genshin at all yet, and I find the conversation we're having, and I hope other people will find it significantly more interesting.
Well, I
than us
mean,
talking about Genshin. I mean, especially because like now that like the theory crafting podcast is a thing that will probably be happening more consistently. Like, I just don't really feel the need to talk about Genshin stuff right now, unless it's like something interesting we both want to talk about.
well, the
like,
only thing interesting to talk about is that I do have a
oh yeah,
potential
the announcement thing.
yeah, a
Yeah.
potential comeback, I guess is what we'll call it. Is that there's a new character coming up that is a Claymore Geo user, and there's a small chance, wink,
There is a
wink,
possibility.
a shot in the dark, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that their weapon could, somehow, be useful for Noelle. Maybe, I don't know, pretty good.
Could potentially be everything Noelle's been praying for
Right, and if
out of a 5-star weapon.
that weapon is good, I'm gonna try rolling for it with my 30 rolls that I have or something. And if I get it, I'll come back.
Yep, you'll start
I
streaming
will
Genshin
start
back.
streaming Genshin again. Daily, maybe. We'll see. But I'm gonna stream for it.
Yeah.
And if I don't get it, I'm giving my account away.
Yep.
So we will be doing that.
The mechanics of which we'll figure out
if
later,
you would
but-
like to see me get that weapon, like you're really invested in me streaming Genshin for some reason, if you want to donate towards it, I will take half donations. So if you donate $20, I will put $10 towards rolling. This is not going to be a 1-to-1 conversion because money is tight, which brings me into my next point. I am transitioning out of streaming and going back into full-time logistics work.
Which is what you did before we started doing content creation full time.
It's, I don't know. I've had people tell me a couple things. It's just always just do your own thing. You should do whatever. And I don't know. I'm just.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's the financial viability of it.
Right. And that's kind of the thing. Is just the financial viability is not really there. And it's not that I don't like streaming, because unfortunately streaming is really fun. I get to interact with a lot of people and hear a lot of stories and learn a lot of things, and there's a lot of people that I've met in my time streaming, like from at TwitchCon and random places in Seattle and whatnot. These are friends that I will have forever. And in fact, Jinx is
Hello.
apparently my best friend.
Tutor is my best friend.
Which is something I never thought I'd hear. And
I'm amazed it took me. I swear to God, I thought I had told you that way like months ago, but apparently I'd never said those words before. So
it still makes me giddy just even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I really I don't know, I really like it, but it's I hate to be so blunt about it. I guess I should just say that some people they don't like me anymore. And I get it. It's not something I'm upset about or anything, but it just, if it's my time to stop, it's my time to stop, and you got to pay bills. I have just recently sold almost all of my guitar gear. I had some extra pedals and stuff lying around, an extra amp. I'm just getting rid of all of it. In order to just make it for the next couple of months, just giving it a last ditch effort doing a you know, there's some things that I've always not done just because of I hate to say respect out of community, but you know, I don't ping everybody in my Discord when I go live. I've had a go live notification. I'm pinging everybody now because you
Yep.
know what, when it goes, I don't even know if the Discord's gonna stay if I go. So you know, because Jinx isn't
Yeah.
gonna run it.
Fuck no.
Jinx sure as shit isn't gonna run it. He hasn't been in there for a year, literally since last Christmas. Or wait, no, you said a random thing the other day.
I responded to someone saying something nice. That was it.
Yeah. So you know, let's use it or lose it, I guess. So if you are in the YouTube audience or whatever, and you happen to be here, and you can pop in and just say hi, and if you have a Prime, you know, Amazon Prime, and you got a Prime that you can give, I appreciate it. But yeah, I'm gonna be slowly transitioning out of streaming into other work, just to make sure that all happens. So
Yeah, I think what was it? The timeline was like start of next year sort of thing.
yeah, um, just try that out and see how it works.
Yeah. Yeah, ultimately, like, at the end of the day, like, you gotta pay bills. And, like, that was, for me, with content creation, the reason why I quit YouTube was because I enjoy making content. I enjoy this work. I enjoy making content. I enjoy sharing stuff. Like, this was, like, in many ways, for a while, like, a dream job for me because, like, I love crunching math in video games. I love teaching people stuff. I feel like a dream job for me would be to be a professor, but that's just not really a realistic goal I can achieve in any reasonable amount of time, considering I don't even have a bachelor's degree.
Right? Yeah, it would take you
But
another like 8 years to.
it would take me another 8 years it would take me another 6 years just to get a master's degree, and that's assuming I could even handle full-time school while also paying bills, because Jenny's also going to school, so we're a single income household right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know,
Um,
like via college professor versus high school teacher. I thought you kind of needed
you
more
need a
than a
PhD.
master's.
You need a PhD if you want to be university professor. Community college is a different story.
Oh, okay.
I've talked to a Wendt and some other professors I know about this to kind of understand the industry a bit better. Um, and like, yeah, like, as a Wendt put it, that he, like, technically you don't need a doctorate to be a university professor, a tenured university professor, but he's literally only ever known one person who has ever achieved that. So like, it's just like, either way, it's just not necessarily a realistic goal for me.
Hmm.
But I really enjoy teaching people, and like, one of the nice things about content creation is, like, before like I started making videos on shit, I would, like, go on Reddit and go on Discord and like teach people stuff. And I was like, fuck it, I'm good at video editing. I'm just gonna like make videos about this so like it can reach more people.
Don't you fucking lie to them.
What?
Don't you
Hey,
lie.
hey, hey, hey,
I'm so
hey.
sick of answering the same 5 questions every day on Reddit. I'm just gonna make a video to link it to them.
Yeah, that is exactly why I did that. I was definitely a lot more explicit about it than I am. I am definitely probably conveying it a lot more calmly than I did at the time. But
This is some rose-tinted glasses bullshit.
oh yeah, no, absolutely.
You fucking. I'm so sick of these fucking idiots asking me the same 5 questions every day. I'm not gonna waste my time anymore. I'm making up a video.
Yeah, basically.
Oh god, dude.
But yeah. Anyway.
I
Yeah, so
exposed in 4K.
exposed in 4K. Yep. Um Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, I had a lot to learn, and the main reason we started having like any kind of like any kind of like any kind of like a business relationship that turned into the friendship we have is because you were basically the one person who was willing to be like, hey, your audio production sucks. Let me help you with it. which is literally what happens. Like,
J-
because I mean, I have video editing experience through my consulting work and everything, but I never had to handle recording,
Mhm.
right? I never had to handle audio recording. So I always had good audio files to work with. I just,
Meanwhile,
yeah,
my mom was in radio since
right,
before I was born, and
right.
I spent my life growing up in a morning show, fucking studio because she couldn't afford a babysitter and she was a single mother who just had to get up, you're gonna sit in the office for the next fucking 5 hours until school comes.
Yep.
So I learned all about like how to talk and how to
Yeah.
interact and all sorts of good shit.
Yep. Which is like, I guess, some of the more behind the scenes stuff that people don't realize. Especially since we've had issues in the past of people being like, "Oh, what does Tuner actually bring?" It's like a lot of shit outside of just the community management shit. There's just so much stuff behind the scenes that he does, but it's behind the scenes.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same shit I would tell anybody else. It's like if they think I'm like, do you think Jinx is smart? Like, yeah. Okay, do you think he's stupid enough to keep me around if I'm not doing anything?
Yeah, if anything, for fuck's sake, like you're insulting my intelligence.
Yeah. I'm just like do you think Jinx is stupid enough to just keep me around on the payroll if I don't do anything? Like what the fuck?
I was a business consultant. I am not unfamiliar with firing people
Yeah.
who don't produce. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. But for me, like the thing that like really like I enjoy content creation. I enjoy a lot about it. The problem was like the reality was that the realities of like having to play the game the way you have to play it at the level of success we have for it to be financially viable was just not something I could continue doing.
Hmm.
Like in terms of like the workload was a big part of it, but even the workload aside, a big part of it too was just like, if I really wanted to play the game, I felt like I would have to be sacrificing the integrity of my content, and I wasn't willing to do that. I'd rather let the baby die than like try to appeal to like the algorithm of the hype up every new character. Oh my god, oh my god, this character's so amazing. Look at these big numbers full of shit.
Jinx really said you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a
Become
villain.
the villain. Yeah. It, so like, I quit. Like I quit doing it because
Hey yo, what's up, gamers? We're here to talk about the new character in Genshin Impact.
yeah, basically, like we weren't at the points where we
Yo, you
could
see this
survive.
character? He can do literally 500,000 damage every 30 seconds. This is sick, bro. What the fuck? Every 30 seconds? My character can do 100k damage every 2 seconds. What are you on about?
Lol. Yep.
Sorry.
But yeah, so like I just wasn't willing to do that, and it's not like it's not like I started doing this as like a high schooler or something without viable like career choices. Like I was and now am like an upscale fine dining server.
Yeah.
The place I'm at right now, I'm making like 55 to 60 grand a year, and like it's much less than I could be making. It's just this particular job is a lot less mentally draining for me, so I can work on other stuff. If I were to go back to like fine dining places I've been, I'd probably be making like 80. I'd probably be making like 75 to 80 grand plus, but like I would have no energy and mental space left to work on other stuff like the career transition I'm working on.
Look, Jinx, I need you to forget everything you know except for fine dining and breathing.
Lol. LOL. But yeah, I don't know. Like it's not like I didn't. It's not like I'm taking a pay raise quitting YouTube. Like
Yeah. Well,
I'm
and that's
realistically
what I was,
taking a
and that's
pay
what
raise doing this.
and that's what I talked about in my farewell video with you. Is like, you know, I, what was here for you? I mean, it was stress, and you weren't making money. Like I would say, oh, well, at least you can do it because you enjoyed it, but you weren't enjoying it.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
so
what I had to do for it to be financially viable was not enjoyable.
right. So I mean, what, you know, And I know a lot of people, like, we got a lot of comments that were just like, "Oh, I can't believe you're quitting the dream job. Oh god, you've," like, dude,
Y'all
some days you
realize,
wake up and you realize that what you thought you wanted to do your whole life wasn't as amazing as you thought it was gonna be.
yeah,
And then sometimes you wake up and you thought, what you wanted to do for the rest of your life was exactly what you wanted to do for the rest of your life, but
yep.
it wasn't working out.
I mean, also
And
just like realistically, the people who say that kind of shit probably aren't like
they're kids.
adults with an established career. Like
They're
they
they're
don't,
kids.
yeah, like they don't get it.
Yeah, they're kids.
Yeah,
And even if they're and even if they're 20, 24, 25, they're kids.
yeah.
They've probably never had to do any kind of thing where you have to balance taking care
They've
of
never had
your
to choose, but they
wife
probably
and
never
your
had to.
family over something that
Yep.
you enjoyed. And
The sacrifices you have to make
yep.
for the sake of your safety, your happiness, and the same things for your family.
Mhm.
I mean, at the end of the day, life is about sacrifices. Very few people ever get to have it all, you know?
Yeah.
You have to make these kinds of choices.
And those that do often were born into
Yeah, also true.
it. Salty, salty, salty. No kidding.
Lol. Something, something, eat the rich, something, something. But
Uh,
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, ultimately, I this is a different situation for you
yeah.
with choosing to quit full-time streaming, right?
Well, I mean, it's the issue is
There's a lot of similarities, but like you genuinely seem to really enjoy doing what you do. You
right,
enjoy,
right. I
yeah.
do enjoy it, genuinely, and I don't necessarily know if I can think of a job that I've had. I mean, except for like just the sheer fun that is working in logistics, where you're just
Yeah.
moving 150-pound boxes and just you're basically getting paid to play in a jungle gym.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just great fun, but it's just, I'm not at the point where I can't pay my bills yet, but it's going down in a pretty obvious trajectory the past few
Mhm.
months. And I haven't played Genshin. I get it. As I've always said, I'm not stupid. I know people watch me for one or two things. Like they either watch me for Monster Hunter or they watched me for Genshin, and whatever. I get it. But as much as I love my community that I have, the consistent 50, 60 people that show up every day, which is still amazing. I mean, I think about how I'll be disappointing like 50, 60 people who come in and watch me every day. There's some people who literally the second I start stream, they're in there until the second I quit stream.
Yeah.
They are like in there. They are lifers, bro. And I'm just thinking, like, dude, imagine if your favorite show got canceled. Like, how bummed you would be if you watched it
Yeah.
every single day and it failed.
Yep.
And you know, I'm like, damn, I'm gonna be bumming some people out, but
Yep.
it's just not enough. It's not enough money. It isn't.
Yep. At
And
the
I
end
know
of the
I
day,
know
it's
it's
just
not
not
always
financially
about
viable.
the money, Spider Man. It's about the Mets.
People who say
Love the
money
bet.
doesn't buy
Love the
happiness
Mets.
have never lived below the poverty line.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's just
Ultimately, I mean, hell, there's been sociological studies on this. Like we know this already. Money buys happiness until you're above the poverty line.
right, right. And I mean,
Like,
and it's not like, I'm not living on crazy means here, folks. It's not like I'm, whatever. I'm like, if I made $20,000 a year, I'd be happy. And so that tells you how little money I'm making,
yeah.
right? Like we're making right now just out of subs, it's like less than I think we're gonna be less than 800. Uh, I'm not one of those people that's afraid to show off my shit.
Yeah.
Like we're looking at next month's payout's gonna be 860. That's not a lot of money to live on. but I've still got a little bit in reserve. Like I said, I sold a bunch of my guitar stuff, so um, you know, I got a bigger cushion than what I thought when I had whatever. I decided to sell some of my stuff, but it's obviously going down, and I'm pretty sure like next payout, it's gonna like we're gonna be like $500 or something for the next payout. So it's I gotta do what I gotta do.
Yep. At the end of the day, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Yep. And like especially and like in my case as well, like there's also just the added factor of like I'm married. I have someone else to support since unlike me, Jenny doesn't really have super viable career options outside of going back to school and becoming a therapist.
Mhm.
Like she could go back into the hair industry, but she's not really built for it. Like she's excellent at the job, but like the cosmetology industry in general is just such a hustle economy, right?
Mhm.
Like you gotta hustle, you gotta build your client list, you gotta push product. Like that's how you have success in that. And Jenny just isn't a hustler. She's not built for it.
Yeah.
She's not built for that kind of hustle sort of work. So like her going back into the hair industry would not only be like very toxic for her mental health, it just wouldn't be financially that great. And so so going back to school to become a therapist not only would make her much happier, but also would be also just a big pay upgrade. And so I'm supporting her through that right now. We're a single income household and everything, and like that's important to me to be able to provide that for my wife.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I want to be able to save up money so we have, not only more of a cushion, but we can
But
actually
like
start having
things
some
you
proper
want like
investments and
okay,
everything.
well, because like okay, if I cut absolutely every possible thing out of my life, right? Like if I woke up, went to work, made money, then went back to sleep, woke up, went to work, made money, went back to sleep, and never took a day off, never took a like I mean, I stream like fucking 12 hours a day,
Yeah.
15 hours a day, and did nothing. Like ate bread and shit. That's it. Buttered bread. I could probably make ends meet, but that's no
Yeah.
way for a human to live.
Yeah.
That's just that's not living. That's
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a lot of people that live like that. I've lived like that before. I
Yep.
woke up at 5 a.m., went to work at FedEx, came home at 7 or 9, worked, 4 hours, and then went home, slept, probably played League
Yep.
nonstop until 5 o'clock in the afternoon when I'd go back and get home at like 10 and basically just work a split 8-hour shift, moving boxes all day, and then just coming home and you know
Yep.
it's not a way to live.
Yeah. And the sad reality is many people have to do that if they don't have to do that with multiple jobs just to make ends meet.
Right.
Because the minimum wage has not been adjusted for living expenses in what is it, like 20 something years in the US?
Yeah.
Like a human being cannot survive on
A lot of
750 an hour.
places are doing 15, to be fair. They're moving up
A
to
human
15.
being can barely survive off of 15,
I
but
know. I know, but I mean, to say it hasn't been adjusted it's now being
okay, the
adjusted.
federal minimum wage
Okay.
hasn't been adjusted,
Okay.
which is important because I'm in Georgia where the state minimum wage is the federal minimum wage.
As like most people are saying, it's like it's not sad that you worked like that. It's that you sad that you played League.
Lol.
Which is funny because Jinx actually likes watching me play League because he says it's the true tuner.
It's the off-stream tuner, yeah.
Yeah, it's the off-stream salty tuner that
Yeah.
Jinx enjoys. He says it's the more real version of me, not like the perpetually sugar bubblegum tuner.
Yeah. I mean, they're both aspects of your personality. It's just nice to see the aspect you're not always showcasing for the public, you know?
It's the aspect I only show you,
I think
baby. It's the
I
aspect
think
I only show you.
I think it's less that it's the real tuner and it's more the private tuner.
Yeah.
It's like, when you live with someone, you see their private self.
Yeah, it's just
You
yeah.
see them
So
in
Jinx
you see
Jinx
them a
likes
bit
my
more raw.
privates.
Yes, I like tuners private. Does the real tuner mold as much as the Jeff? Not as much.
Oh no, I'm a support main, so I'm filled with rage in a sugar bubblegum package. Don't you understand?
Yeah.
You open up the
Speaking of
wrapper and all it is just toxic.
Speaking of support main, this weekend I got to hang out with my friends who I haven't seen in fucking years, and we got to like spend a lot of the weekend together, chatting and catching up and everything, and talking about stuff. Been giving. I really am appreciative too because he's been giving me a lot of advice about this transition into like corporate analytics work I'm looking at, right? Because he's done a lot of that stuff before and has connections that can be very helpful and whatnot, and a lot of
Mhm.
experience in it. But he's also been like hard on that New Worlds grind,
Yeah.
and he is the best healer in his server,
Yeah.
like by a big margin in like the territory wars and whatnot. He's consistently beating second best healer in that particular war by like 20 to 60% output.
Yeah.
And he's the first, like a few, like a maybe a little over a week ago, they made a patch that made heals not overlap
Uh-huh.
because they used to.
Yeah.
And he is the first person in his server to hit over 4 million total healing since they made that patch.
Huh.
I was actually thinking about possibly doing just like a fun little interview with him about that,
Yeah.
about like, New World and like healing in the meta and stuff like that in the game, which he
Yeah.
said he was down for, so maybe that'll happen at some point. We'll put it on the channel. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, like just a fun aside. Support bless bless you support mains. Bless you support
Look, it
mains.
was a selfish decision, right? Because I was tired of going into games where people were like, "I don't want to play support. I don't want to play support." It's like, fine, I'll just be the best goddamn support you've ever fucking seen.
Yep. I mean, that's why I liked
And then low
playing
Q times, baby, Q times.
It's why I like playing like assassins in like League. It's one of the many reasons I like playing assassins in League, because like I'm as an assassin, it's less so you're reliant on your support for success, and it's more you're reliant on tracking the enemy supports for success.
Yeah,
Like it's less about being like, oh my god, heal me, shield me, or peel for me, like a sustained damage dealer like an AD carry is, and it's more like, okay, wait for their supports and tanks cooldowns to be down so I can jump on their ADC and burst them.
oh my god, wait, hold on, pause, intermission. Toxie Moxie.
Toxie Moxie?
Do you know who that is?
Of course I know who Toxie
Okay.
is.
I was just
We met in the Rex Discord server.
Oh, I'm just making sure you remember who that is. You got too big for your britches. I thought maybe you forget.
Oh, forgot about the little guys.
Yeah, but the little guys who have a channel that's like
fucking 155k subscribers or some shit.
Hello, Toxie. Hope you're having a good day.
Thank you for the raid, Toxie.
Thank you for the raid. We're doing a podcast thing right now.
Yeah.
So a little distracted, but I hope you had a good day. I hope we're playing Animal Crossing on November 5th. Girl. Want to see that fresh new drip. You better be posting those daily outfits. That was my highlight of my day, is when you wake up every day and you're like, this is today's fit in Animal Crossing. I better see him. I'm serious. Okay. That was at like 108 if you want to like
nah, that's fine.
If you want to cut it out.
We can leave it in. It's nice to see the interaction. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the reason people like watch streams, right? Is for the interaction. So
yeah, but that's not why they watch podcasts.
Fuck it. It's a stream podcast. Get used to it.
I'm being so inefficient with this balloons farm thing. It's terrible. No, it's like actually so bad.
Lol. It's okay. It's just background for the podcast.
Yeah, no, it's I just know.
Speaking of which, the first point on our actual document of like things to talk about on the podcast. Thank you, Zaxton Hong, for everything you always do.
Yeah,
especially for the last podcast.
And thank you for the Patreon patrons. There's actually been a couple people who say that they're no longer subbing, but they're moving to Patreon.
Oh yeah,
because they still want to give me the money every month, but like they give me more money on Patreon.
Yeah.
And less money to Twitch.
Yeah, exactly. Which, Twitch is like an amazing platform, and it's allowed this career path to be a possible thing, but also Twitch.
Also Twitch.
Also Twitch. But yeah.
Also, Twitch.
But yeah. All right. I guess
Oh,
there
lovely.
we go. Anyway, yeah, like I said, I don't really have any interest in actually talking Genshin stuff in this podcast, to be honest. I feel like the stuff we're actually talking about is a lot more us and just a lot more interesting.
Yeah, and I guess I mean that's what I had always talked about is because you had always talked about when you first started this that you wanted to do more of a personality
Personality
thing. You
challenge
just
sort of
wanted
thing.
to talk to people and do whatever. And I had always said how like this was a good way of doing that, and
Yeah.
you were always worried about doing it. And
Yeah.
I finally convinced you to do it because like I mean why not? And you know I don't know. Then we started doing the podcast, and you were just like, "Okay, but let's also talk about Genshin." I'm like, "Fuck it, why?"
I mean, a large part of it was that, like, talking about Genshin once a week on the podcasts helped me get that, like, Genshin theory crafting itch out of my brain.
Yeah.
Because, like, that is a big part of it too, is that, like, I still enjoy Genshin and enjoy theory crafting Genshin, and, like, it kind of scratches that itch, like, it scratches that itch that helps remove that desire of, like, wanting to make an occasional video or something about Genshin, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, my brain's still just like, "But it gives me dopamine to share theory crafting stuff and help people out in the Genshin community." But, like, now that, like, this, like, Kaching Main's roundtable theory crafting thing is, like, looking to stop becoming a consistent thing, that scratches that itch, and now I just don't give a fuck about talking more about Genshin this week.
Right.
Also, the, like, financial side of things too was always kind of a bit of a concern too, but I think with, like, the announcement of you, like, deciding to leave full-time Twitch, that's also assuaged a bit to some extent.
Mhm.
So, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really feel like talking about Genshin in our podcast. I'd much rather just spend more time actually talking with my friend about stuff we're interested in.
What are you gonna do when I quit though, and we can't do any podcasts?
I mean, A, I'm gonna try to make podcasts work if possible.
Me.
Otherwise, though, we'll just, I don't know, we'll have Discord calls and chats.
Me.
We'll shit post with each other in our DMs.
Lol. Ooh, Jinx sliding into them DMs.
Yeah. I mean, like, worst case scenario, like, we'll try to find a way to schedule at least, like, a 2-hour time slot to hang out every week.
Yeah.
That's a doable thing.
Yeah. Depends. I guess it depends on my time zone too.
Yeah. We'll do our best to work it out. That's the kind of bridge we can't really that's the kind of thing we can't really cross until we come to the bridge sort of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, just because it's so dependent on, like, how our schedules look overlapping with each other and all that kind of shit, so
Mhm.
just know that I will make it a priority in my life to try to make it work.
And just know, I will remember
Remember
you.
you.
Will you remember me? It feels like a eulogy, like fucking dying.
I probably will, but I have ADHD, so there'll be times I won't remember you.
God, oof,
Oof.
oof.
It's how my brain works. When I hyperfocus on something, nothing else exists except the thing I'm focusing on.
Oh my god, oof,
It's just how my brain works.
oof. That's an oof moment right there.
Big oof.
But as far as like some random other things, I did have a couple like I know we've been having stream of consciousness right now, and
Yeah.
I feel like that's honestly the best part of this
Oh
podcast.
yeah,
But
absolutely. Yeah.
um,
The point I was trying to make earlier with the Giga thing was that, like, I've been listening to, like, Trash Taste podcast that he does with his mates,
mhm,
and, like, their stuff is just, like, fucking pure stream of consciousness, and I think that's part of what makes it so great to
mhm.
listen to. So I enjoy the stream of consciousness parts of our little chats and whatnot.
But so just plans. Um, I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. So when I say like I'm quitting, like I'm basically just preparing people for like
Yeah.
my imagined inevitability. But I'm still kind of hoping, still kind of coping, praying that like when Rise comes out and I can play PC Rise, maybe that'll bring enough people back in that
Yeah.
like I can make it work again. You know, maybe
Yeah.
or maybe
And it's
like
always a possibility too that even if you go back to full-time logistics work, you could still do this on the side as an enjoyable activity.
it's
But like,
hard, dude.
yeah,
Streaming's
no,
so
it's
hard
yeah. It's yeah, it'd be hard.
mentally. And I know a lot of people are gonna go Keck W. Streaming is hard. Okay. But like it's genuinely really taxing to
Yeah.
pay attention and talk, especially for somebody like I don't talk. I'm not a social butterfly or anything. I think people would be maybe surprised to know that. I'm not a social butterfly. I'm very much an introverted person. I enjoy sitting by myself in car rides with multiple people. I prefer if nobody's talking while we're in the car. Is I'm a very introverted person. And spending 8 hours a day actively trying to be funny and talking to people and all that while also having to provide some kind of entertainable level of skill in a game because nobody wants to watch somebody suck unless they suck so bad that it's funny.
That's the entertainment value, yeah.
Right. Like it's genuinely taxing. But I enjoy it because I mean I've always, you know, enjoyed talking to people about like it's weird. I don't like okay, so like I'm not a social interactor, but I love learning about other people.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, that's actually exactly how I feel about things too. Part of the reason you do the community management is because I like people conceptually. I find psychology and sociology and all of the behavioral sciences really fascinating, and that's part of what I enjoy about consulting work is like basically getting to test, experiment, and apply those kinds of things
Mm,
in like a business and efficiency standpoint. Because I mean, at the end of the day, a business is made up of humans, right?
mm.
So that angle of things is just as important to consider as just like raw logistics, right?
Mm.
But I love people conceptually. I kind of fucking hate people.
Right?
Otherwise, that's why I hate managing people. That's why I've hated any time I've had like the nice thing about consulting work is it's not my job to manage people. It's my job to tell managers how to make things better.
Right.
Like I don't that's why I'm also considering looking into like business analytics work because that's what a business analyst does. You tell people you basically tell like the DAs, the data analysts, like what numbers to pull so we can look at things, and then you just you tell the managers how to make things better, and you don't actually have to manage the people. But like, yeah, at the end of the day, like I like people conceptually. I kind of don't like them that much in person.
You don't love me. You love the idea of me.
Yeah.
Uh but yes, back bringing that back just
Yeah, that was a point we were supposed to be
yeah, well, no,
focusing
it's
on
just
for a
I'm
second there.
hoping that like maybe the Monster Hunter community people will be like, oh, hey, Tudor's streaming Monster Hunter again, because there were people who came when I was doing the PC demo that were like, oh
Yeah.
shit, it's nice to see you streaming Monster Hunter again. Maybe I'll watch, and that could potentially be enough to keep it going. I'm hoping. Basically, I'm preparing for the worst, and if something good happens, then awesome. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm like, yeah, it's been a very obvious steady decline. Be prepared for me to stop streaming, and if some, it's like I put it out tweets like, oh, maybe I'll just pull myself up by my bootstraps, like do a bunch
Lol.
of changes, and maybe the stream will fix itself. Lol, it was like that was kind of like a maybe copium, but
Copium.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it was also kind of my way of it's also kind of my way of being like, hey, if you do care about the stream, if you appreciate it, and there's anything that you feel like you can do And again, only if you feel like you can and you're not sacrificing anything else, like, maybe it if you care, maybe think about trying to show up, you know,
Yep.
because
Show
I'm
up.
I'm not
If you
gonna
have a
always
Twitch
be
Prime,
here.
throw out a Twitch Prime.
Yeah, throw a Twitch Prime. If you've got an extra $5 you can throw me a month, or, like, you wanna do Patreon, or, like, if you like, basically, I was just saying, it's like, if you care about me being here, now would be the time to put in an effort because it's not gonna last forever.
Yep. Pretty much.
Yeah. But another thing is like what I talk about is the speaking of the Monster Hunter community. The Monster Hunter community got nominated for a Golden Joystick Award for like
Yeah,
the best
saw that.
community, along with Final Fantasy,
Yeah.
No Man's Sky, and a couple of other things. And so I did want to talk to you about what you thought like about that. If you thought Monster Hunter community was because you've been in a lot of communities, you've been in like Dark
Yeah.
Souls. We've obviously been in Genshin at this point and whatever. I would not say I don't think Genshin's on that list. Genshin shouldn't be on that list if they were on that list.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Genshin, absolutely not. Honestly, I think the Monster Hunter community is pretty great, and I just think I think it's hard to remember that when you're in the kind of communities we're in. When you're in like the meta build space, you're in the speedrunner space, you're in
Yeah.
Monster Hunter Twitter and shit like that. Like, it's hard to remember that, but like, I mean, I'm still just remember like my experiences being in the Rex community for Monster Hunter is probably the best experience being in a game community I've ever had.
Right. No, and
And like
I
Rurikon's community and like stuff like that, right? Like,
I
at
don't
the end
know.
of the day,
Rurikon's kind of a shitter. I love Rurikon. Rurikon, there's no way
yeah,
in
but
fuck
being a
your
shitter doesn't mean that it's a bad community.
yeah,
It
yeah.
just means you have a shitter community,
Yeah,
and
like
that's great. Why do you think I hang out in Fledgies?
like Rurikon, I love you. There's no way you're ever gonna hear this. Rurikon, you're a fucking shitter, and I love it.
Yep.
Oh god.
Yeah, being a shitter isn't a bad thing.
Nah. Oh god. I love that guy. He's funny. He's funny as fuck, actually.
I mean, fuck, why do people like VTubers? Because they're cute anime girls who shitpost.
Why do they like VTubers? I think there's other reasons why they like
Okay,
VTubers besides
there's a
that.
lot of reasons, but I mean, like, also though, like the massive success of like Hololive recently, because like I mean, there's been VTubers in the past, and there's been other similar style content in the past, but like a big part of it too is just that like people enjoy the fact that they're fucking shit posters.
I don't know. Some people have actually told me that I should get into VTubing, and I don't know if
I mean, like in your case, there is a degree to which it would make some sense because you don't really enjoy having like an actual camera up.
yeah.
For me, I've had way too many people tell me that if I ever do any streaming again, I really should actually have a cam up
Yeah.
because people seem to very largely agree that I'm an attractive person and I should make use of that asset.
Well, I mean, you seem to think I'm pretty cute.
I mean, I think you're cute, but
Jinx, the guy who said that if I wasn't attractive, you wouldn't have you wouldn't have fucking made a business with me.
I would have. I have in fact been in like in my consulting work. I have been in business with people who are not that necessarily conventionally attractive.
You
or that
said
attractive to me,
that if I wasn't attractive as I am, you would not be like as closely working with me.
I know I said that at the time. In retrospect, it probably would have just taken longer for me to build a relationship with you.
Jinx saying, just admitting he was down bad.
Hey. Kind of. But also, I mean, I'm not like hesitant to say I'm a vain person.
Hold on. Gotta take those pictures captured in 4K.
Screenshot, sound clip, post out of context.
Clipped.
Clip. Nah, I'm not ashamed to say I'm a vain person. I don't
Uh,
necessarily think it's a good thing I'm a vain person. I'm not saying it like it's a virtue or anything, but I recognize it as a
that's
fault of mine
that's
and one
why
I don't necessarily care to fix.
that's why Jinx likes Jenny so much because she got that big Brazilian booty.
I mean, my wife is attractive. I wouldn't I mean, like, I love Jenny, and I love a lot more about her than just her physical qualities, but I also wouldn't marry a person I didn't think was attractive.
God. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be
I don't
attracted
know.
to the person you love.
Yeah, exactly, and I also I've met a lot of people who say that they're like, what's the fucking term? What's the fucking term for someone who's like who is like, the is only attracted to someone's mind.
Oh God, I
What's
can't
it
remember
fucking
it.
called? Yeah.
Somebody's gonna come up with it, but
Yeah,
it's a
what is it?
meme. It's a meme.
It's basically a meme. I just can't remember the fucking term for it right now.
Yeah, it's
But
called being a
basically,
liar.
it's called being a liar, exactly. I mean, it's not so like not necessarily. I like whatever the fucking term for it is. Like I don't necessarily think it's like an impossible thing. In fact, I've known people who I legitimately could say that is the case for them, but they're also all asexual. Sapiosexual. Thank you, Hamster Bob. Yeah, no, sapiosexual. Like I met a lot of people who say they're sapiosexual. I'm like, yeah, I really don't think that's the case. I genuinely don't think that you're actually sapiosexual. That if you met someone who was egregiously physically unattractive, but you love their mind, that you would actually want to pursue a relationship with them. Like I don't think like I've met a lot of people who say they are sapiosexual. I just don't believe them. Um,
I
I
think
just think
I
just
think in
think it's never been
general everybody
tested.
wants somebody who's intelligent enough to like carry on a
Yeah,
conversation and be
exactly.
a
Like that's definitely an important factor. Like very few people are so purely vain that they don't care about someone's personality at all.
the only
Like
character that I can
they
think
don't
of
care
that was
about
like that
chemistry at
was
all.
there was a character in GTA, this really like conventionally attractive Asian lady in the multiplayer who likes the guy with the cane, greasy fat guy with the cane for his
Yeah.
intelligence, the one that masterminds all of the heists. I can't remember
Yeah,
his
but
name.
even then, he's like not that physically unattractive. Like if you're into the nerd aesthetic, he's really not that physically unattractive.
I don't know.
Like there are like
I
he's not
mean,
conventionally attractive, but like
he's like hyper dad botting. I mean, he's not like
some people are into that.
some people are into that dad bod.
Yeah, so a lot of people are into dad bod, and a lot of people
A lot of people like bears.
I guess what I would say is that like his appearance is not like egregiously inoffensive.
Mhm.
Like it's not the kind of thing that physically hurts your eyes to look upon.
The only
Right?
time that I've ever had where like I was actually like ill from looking at a person was because they were an extreme cutter
Yeah.
and their entire length of their arm was just scars. I mean, and not just like light little kitten scratch, like heavy mutilation.
Yeah.
And it made me physically uncomfortable. I had that was the only time that I can ever think that I was genuinely physically uncomfortable that I saw
Yeah.
somebody. And
Yeah.
it was bad. I
Yeah.
reeled. I was like, oh god, because I felt like I was looking at body horror. Frankly, it was really bad. But
Yeah. I think also hygiene's a big part of it too. Like I people who say they're sapiosexual, I'm pretty sure if someone had like truly egregious holder levels hygiene, you probably wouldn't be attracted to them,
no, yeah,
even if you were attracted to their brain. Like there are still other factors at play than just someone's pure brain at the end of the day. Um, but yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know how we got on this fucking sapiosexual tangent,
Because it's a
but
stream of consciousness, and that's all. This
true.
is what we're here for, and the people
Ha,
love it.
it's a stream of consciousness. It's funny because we're on stream right now.
The
Uh,
new name of the podcast, Stream of Consciousness.
lol. How long have we been doing this now? What is
Hour
the
and a half.
time at? Hour and a half? Okay. Um, are there any other topics we want to hit, or this might actually be a pretty good time for the podcast right now? If
Um.
there's not any other specific topics we necessarily want to hit right now, especially because I do need to like go get my car registered and shit today.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, fun stuff.
No. Yeah, I just wanted to briefly talk about you know, the Final Fantasy and Animal Crossing New Horizons coming up in less than a month.
Yeah, I know
Battlefield
Jenny's gonna.
streams that I would like to do with you if we
Yeah,
can.
if we can find like good time slots for it, I'd be down to play the new Battlefield. I've been honestly kind of needing some head clicking in my life.
Yeah. And then the only other crazy piece of news was
Hey guys, Jinx here. So I just want to cut in at this point in the podcast. So from this point on, we are going to be talking about some heavier subjects, which may not be appropriate if you are in a work situation, listening to this without headphones, or in the presence of children, or if you might find yourself triggered by a deeper, heavier discussion about depression in our real lives. Basically, this is just a content warning that things are going to get a bit heavier in the podcast from here on out, so I'd recommend pausing or hopping off now if you're in a situation where you don't want to be hearing about these. So yeah, probably stop it now because I'm about to mention the topics we actually are about to talk about. But basically, we start discussing a mass shooting that happened in Tuner's hometown, and then afterwards we discuss quite a few heavy, deeper topics about mental health, about our experiences with mental health and suffering, and suicidal ideation, and all those kinds of things. These are topics that Tuner and I think are important to talk about, and our own mental health experiences is something that we have never really ever been afraid to talk about in the past. But you know, we also know that this may be triggering to some people, and you may not be in the situation right now where you're listening to it where this will be appropriate to listen to. So yeah, anyway, on to the heavy shit.
you know, for those of you guys who know about like Tuner Grandma, my grandma comes and watches the stream basically every day. Uh, and that's kind of like where I would consider my hometown because I moved a lot, but she's always
Yeah.
lived there, so I always visited there during the summers and the winters and stuff.
Yeah.
There was a mass shooting there in a little town of like less than 2,000, which was completely bonkers. But if you don't have time to talk about that, then we just won't talk about it. But
No, we can talk about it. I'm not saying like I'm out of time. I'm just like, if we didn't really have stuff to talk about, we could probably wrap it up. But yeah,
no,
feel free to talk about it. Yeah.
yeah, no, a guy got fired. Said everybody thought he was gonna like shoot up the building, and just he wasn't necessarily a person that people liked, and so they brought in a guy from out of town, fired him, and he walked out to his car, grabbed a gun, and did exactly what everybody thought he was gonna do, and uh shot the person that fired him, shot the woman that was replacing him, and went to go kill the manager of the building. And I had actually said in the last podcast, because again we're redoing this one, that the guy had thought that he was going to kill him, so that's why he had a gun. I was actually wrong. They had a gun in the office for killing varmints because it's like a grain silo, and there's
Gotcha.
often really big rats running around and shit. And yeah, he took the varmint gun and killed him because he heard the gunshots and everything, and he knew what was going on. So he was basically just sitting in his office with a gun, waiting for him to walk through. And sure as shit, he walked in, killed him. And yeah, the guy's having a bad time with it. He killed somebody. So
Yeah. I mean, like, we live in America, right? Like shootings and stuff. I feel like media desensitizes us to this kind of thing so much, especially with how like how like how how like the American news meta is basically negative shit.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
But
When my grandma told me, I mean,
yeah,
I wasn't. I mean, obviously, I asked her if she was okay and stuff. I wasn't shocked.
yeah,
But and she's like, "Oh, you never imagine it's gonna happen in a small town." Like, I think it could happen anywhere. But
yeah. But like, it's just weird when it touches into your life.
Mhm.
It's it definitely can hit different.
Yeah, my grandma's farm, I could probably stand at the edge of my grandmother's property and throw a rock at the building that this happened to. I walked past that building dozens, hundreds of times in my life. Like physically walked past it, driving past it thousands. But, you know, my cousin and I would often cross their property cuz like it's hard to explain, but basically let me throw up a thing real quick on the stream just for anybody who wants to see, but it's like you know, the farm would be here, the store that we'd go to get our magic cards would be here, but there was this big grain silo here. Yes, it looks like dick and balls. And you would have to drive around, but we would just cut like straight through the property.
Yeah.
And so I'm very familiar with that building, and yeah, it's just kind of nuts to think
Yep.
that 3 people got killed there,
Yep.
because some guy got fired, which is nuts. And I think about that all the time. It actually, the more so that I think about it because, I was a manager and I did have a guy on in my area who was this curmudgeon old guy who didn't want to follow the rules. And every time you tried to make him follow the rules, he would threaten to call his lawyer and have HR. And I remember that it was just, it was just really uncomfortable. And he would always talk about hunting and how he was hunting, and so he obviously like had guns and stuff. And I'm like, if I fire this guy because he does not follow rules, what the fuck's gonna happen? I'd think about that.
Yeah.
This is kind of that. That's a very clear, obvious case of, you know, this kind of thing can happen.
Yep.
But
Yep. There's a lot of issues any country has a lot of issues, but especially America, that kind of thing. Those kinds of subjects, I don't know. They hit different when you feel like they could actually when either they do or could impact your life directly.
mhm.
Like, part of the reason, like, we talk about mental health a lot and stuff like that, and like I've talked about like the opioid epidemic, which was the biggest epidemic in the U.S. before COVID happened, of course,
Mhm.
and like
Well,
a
I was
lot of
personally
people are
affected by
probably
that, and I'm
yeah.
not sure about you, but yeah.
Yeah, like, both of us have had I have been personally affected by that. Less so from like the opioid side of things, but just in general with addiction. I've struggled with addiction issues in the past, and I have lost friends to heroin
Yeah.
and lost a lot more just like acquaintances through heroin. I used to promote in the rave scene, so like I know a lot of people who are in those kinds of scenes.
Well,
And like
my
it's just
abuser,
weird to hear from like mutual friends every so often when we catch up. Just like, oh yeah, no, this person died. This person overdosed.
yeah,
Person died from fentanyl cut shit. Like, it's
yeah,
just it's something that doesn't necessarily affect my life, but it's something I'm just very aware of.
yeah. Well, and as like my abuser, my mom, she was on so many fucking oxycontins and narcotics for her pain, and so I had to deal with that shit.
Yep.
And it's nutty to think about. But
Yep. Yep. I guess at the end of the day, these things just they hit different when they are a part of your life or have affected your life in some way.
well, but it's just weird to me because like I mean, I've thought about killing myself a lot. It's a thing I still think about. But just wondering if it's worth it, or like what is there for me, if I'm never gonna have a family, never gonna have kids, never gonna have any of that shit. Like, well, what's the point? What's the difference between dying today or in 30, 40, 50? But just the idea of like killing other people on the way out, that has never ever in my 30 years crossed my mind. Like, I'm going to kill somebody else and then kill, like, that's bizarre, dude. I don't know how you could do that. How,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a very foreign concept to you because, like, ultimately, like, SI and HI, like, suicidal ideation and homicidal ideation, are different symptoms. I mean, they all root from mental illness and, generally speaking, trauma. But, like, at the end of the day, they're very different symptoms. And, like, I guess to me, it's like just like how someone who is well adjusted and has never had to struggle with extreme bouts of depression or personality or personality disorders or mental illnesses that like lead to those kinds of things,
yeah.
like those kinds, like for them it's just it's just like so hard to conceptualize the idea of like suicidal ideation, of like wanting, of like, despite being aware of how it would affect people around you and all this different kind of stuff, or like how worth life is worth living and positive thinking and all this stuff, like conceptualizing the like trying to conceptualize the idea of daily suicidal ideation, right?
I don't know. I
Like, that's
guess I'm
just,
so deep in the hole that it's
yeah.
as I can't imagine a person. I can't imagine that there's a person on this planet that has never thought about killing themselves before.
And
And
like,
my grandma's told me, he's like, well, she's
yeah,
like, but I'm like, my first immediate thought is bullshit.
yeah.
Bullshit. Of course I mean, surely at least once in your life you've been like, yeah, fuck it. But I guess
And I
maybe
guess
I'm
for
so
me,
far gone that like it's just
well, I mean, a big part of it too is like, our friends and the communities we interact with and whatnot are like generally most of the people there are mentally ill in some way, and we're like big into like queer communities and whatnot, where that has a lot of overlap and whatnot.
Mhm,
And like what we're exposed to, like this is not a foreign thing, right?
mhm.
But there's a lot of people who are just very well adjusted and have spent their life around well adjusted people, where like that that degree of like depression and like ennui and whatnot may not have ever been something they've really encountered.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's similar with like homicidal ideation too. Like, I mean, they're always the result of mental illness or and largely some kind of trauma or even like some personality disorder and whatnot. But like, it's something that, I mean, I also too can't conceptualize what it's like to be like that, right? I
Yeah.
can't conceptualize what it's like to have to feel an urge like that. But I mean, the reality is people do. I also can't really conceptualize what it's like to have like pedophilic urges and whatnot. But like the reality is people do have those, and and like it's one of the big tragedies of American society that we don't on like a federal and like governmental scale care enough about mental illness as a thing to really focus on and improving in society, that these things just go uncontested, and these things don't, and people most a lot of people just don't seek help for it or don't have access to help for it, and it leads to mass shootings, and it leads to shit like this happening, and
Yeah.
it leads to people coping for these things in unhealthy ways like drug addiction and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like, they just aren't things that are properly addressed in our society, and the mass shootings, the death from like the like people dying from like as a result of addictions and overdoses and all this kind of shit. It's just the result of that.
Mhm.
Like, ultimately, I truly believe no person's mental illnesses or personality disorders or anything like that is so far gone they can't be treated and can't learn to cope in healthy, non-dangerous ways.
I
But
wonder if
most people don't have access to or the desire to or the support networks to actually address those things.
part of my whole thing in general, because I'm trying to think of how to word this exactly. Uh I've never done drugs, right? And I've never done any of that.
Yeah. You
And
ever even drank coffee?
yeah, I've
Like,
never had coffee, I've never cigarettes, never tried alcohol, anything. I wonder if it's an excessive grip on control, maybe.
oh, it's very possible, yeah.
Where it's like I guess maybe that's why I idealize suicide, because it's going out on my terms.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's
And maybe
like
that's why I don't do drugs, because like you lose control when you do drugs. When you drink, you lose control when you drink. When you do
yeah,
cigarettes, you're a slave to nicotine.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, a as far as I am aware, like not being like being casually educated on this subject. Like as I understand that, in a lot of cases, suicidal ideation is about like in a lot of cases, it is about control.
Huh.
It is about being able to go out on your own terms and having a lot of negative coping behaviors, like especially things like self harm and whatnot, is about and like eating disorders is about having control
Yeah.
because these are things that these are physical things about yourself you have like you can take control of,
Yeah. I
which
don't know.
is yeah,
I kind of just thought about that right now. I didn't really think
yeah,
about it before, but
yeah, absolutely.
but I don't know. The only other thing I had was Jinx and I have been talking about this for a really long time. Was like just a name, and we could never come up with a name, and we just kind of settled on Mathalos. It wasn't necessarily like it was a good
It was
name, but it wasn't like
yeah,
but the only other thing that I was thinking of is we had always talked about like Panacea, because Jinx is
yeah,
Pan and I'm Ace. And I had a mock-up logo with a friend who used to do my emotes, and I kind of colored it as like what the colors would be for our flags. And I don't know. I'm just kind of screwing around with it. If anybody is in here at this point and wants to leave a comment on YouTube or something about what they think about
yeah.
this,
I
it's
like it. I think the rest of the letters might need to be bigger, and I think my primary concern with it is how it's gonna translate into like the little circle profile,
right.
uh, branding on like YouTube for your
Uh-huh.
channel.
Right.
Like absolutely
I
as like
was
a
thinking,
banner or something like that, it'd be great. It's just I don't feel like it would translate well into like the
well,
I guess the profile picture
a
for the or the
panacea
channel
in video
picture.
games, because that is a video game reference, panacea, generally. I
Yeah.
mean, yes, real panaceas are a thing,
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's a real thing, but like people know it through video games.
yeah,
Yeah.
90% of people who like see a panacea are like, "Oh, that's from Chrono Trigger, or that's from Final Fantasy or whatever." But they typically have a look, and it's like that old like gourd looking thing. So if we wanted to, we could have a logo as like a gourd silhouette or something, and then have, I don't know, some random stuff. Um, and that would be an easily identifiable and understood, what it is.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Just if anybody has any ideas, it's like
Yeah.
it was because like a panacea is a cure all, and I was always joking about how like our podcast, it's like it's the cure for all what ails you. Just
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, also, like our content was largely focused on like solving problems and
Right, right, right,
min-maxing and whatnot, so
right.
it fits. But
Yeah.
yeah. No, I like it. And I mean, at this point, like at this point, this isn't our full-time job anymore. So my biggest concern was always with rebranding was always just how it would affect numbers wise, because
Mm,
rebranding always does affect numbers.
yeah.
But like at this point, fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
I
don't
think
know.
one thing oh yeah, sorry.
Is that bad? I'll just say bad. I don't know. If anybody's got any thoughts.
Yeah. I think one last thing I want to talk about, just because, like, on the topic of like mental health and all the stuff we were just talking about, like, one thing I want to be incredibly clear about is neither Tuner or I are therapists,
Oh yeah.
and please do not take this as any kind of assertion or analysis on yourself personally, because neither of us are both qualified nor informed on your personal situation nearly well enough to make any kind of even anything past broad generalizations or observations of our own experiences.
Yep. These are just
Uh,
purely based on our own experiences. They
yep,
don't necessarily
translates to yours because every
and the
single person is in a unique situation with
and the
unique
best
factors.
advice we can give is go find a therapist, so somebody who would
Go find help.
go find help.
And there are out there, like, yes, it's hard. It's absolutely hard to find a good therapist. When you, it's hard to find a good therapist in general because, to quote Tuca and Birdie season 2, I could be the best therapist in the world, but I might not be the best therapist for you.
Yep. I
Like,
really
and it's
loved
very
it. Go watch
no,
Tuke and Birdie.
yeah, yeah. Go watch Tuca and Birdie
Go
first of all,
watch Tuke and
but
Birdie.
um at the end of the day, like it's hard already to find a good therapist. It's especially, and it's even harder if you don't have insurance. And that's just the reality of a lot of people's situations. They don't have insurance.
Yeah.
But there are sliding scale therapists out there. There are resources to find therapists that you pay out of pocket, but they have sliding scale systems where, they charge less, maybe like around 50, 40, $60 a session sort of thing.
Mhm.
If you just have too low an income to really support like a general like 100 plus per session like out of pocket cost
Mhm.
most good therapists require. There are people who, out of like, the desire to help those who are less fortunate, do have some of their like time slots booked out for these kinds of things.
Mhm.
And the resources exist on the internet. I haven't really looked into it in a few years, so I don't want to make any specific like website recommendations because I don't know if some of them are even active anymore or if they've become bad for any reason. But they do exist, and with some degree of internet research, you can find them.
Mhm.
And yeah, that you don't have to have insurance to be able to get help. Um, it still is a cost, but like you know, unless you're in the at the point where you have to choose between like toilet paper and food
Mhm.
every month, if you can put aside some money, even if it means spending less money on video games or eating out or gotcha or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Like your mental health and your physical health are the two most important things at the end of the day. Like that, and I guess like family, that family or friends that you
And
consider family.
family, as an aside, is what you make of it. Family
Yeah,
doesn't have to
not your
be
biological family,
right.
but
Family is whoever you choose to, like Jinx's family for me, you
yeah,
know,
and
because
Tuner is also family for me.
but we've only met like one
Once
time,
in person.
once in person,
Yeah,
So, just
but like, yeah.
well, and then I would love to have like I mean, neither of us are fucking qualified, so that's a whole
Yeah.
other issue. But like I
I mean,
would,
like, I've done, like, a lot of independent research on this. I've been in therapy for, like, close to a fucking decade at this point, on and
yeah,
off. And, like, my wife is actively pursuing a master's in mental health counseling to become a therapist, but, like, ultimately, we're not qualified for this. Like, we're not qualified to I hate, like, internet therapist types who
mhm,
aren't qualified, and they're like, "Oh, here's the reason you're fucked up," or "Here's me projecting my past experiences with trauma or these various things onto you." Like, I hate people like that on YouTube or Twitch or whatever. Like, you don't know their situation, you don't know their mental illnesses. Very few people, like, I am aware it is very bizarre and out there that I am like, both of us are so forthcoming about our mental illnesses and about our struggles and things like that. Like, it's very rare to meet someone like that. You don't know their situation, and you're not qualified to make any kind of assertions about it.
yeah, and
One of the most dangerous things is giving mental health advice, like past like go find a therapist, basically.
yeah,
But like past that, giving any kind of mental health advice that you're not qualified to give.
right. And well, and I
It
told you,
can cause a lot of harm.
when I visited you the first time, I told you because we were randomly talking and it kind of came onto the subject about men's right activists and you were like, oh yeah, they're all
Lol,
incels and
MRAs.
stuff like that, and they're all whatever, and I was kind of like, well, here's why I identify as one, and I kind of gave you some like things about like suicide statistics.
Yeah.
I gave you some stuff on, you know, suicide statistics, child support statistics, like child uh, custody statistics, poverty statistics, and all sorts of other stuff like that. And one of them that I talked about was mental health and stuff like that, and how like it's not really, um, in general, it's not accepted that men are allowed to talk about their mental health and how
Yeah,
I
there's
advocated
definitely I
so
mean, there are
hard.
unique culture and social factors
Yeah.
that produce issues for people who are raised as men,
Yeah.
in America especially.
And I kind of went on and talked about that, and you were like, "Oh, wait, those are all perfectly valid things to be concerned about. I didn't realize that's what an MRA was." I'm like, "Well, that's what it means to me." You're
Well,
like,
that's what it means to you,
"Yeah,
but also, like, the thing you talked about, like, because like, there's a difference between believing in addressing issues that men have issues with and identifying as an MRA.
Mhm.
Just as there's difference between like about like caring and being interested in and wanting to help fix issues with like people raised as females and identifying as a feminist.
Mhm.
And I suppose like a big concern of mine is that by saying you're an MRA, that comes with so much baggage,
Mhm.
right? Like even saying that you care about men's rights, because like I mean ultimately it's unquestionable in my opinion that like at least from the numbers I've seen that like women are more oppressed than men
Uh-huh.
in America, especially.
Oh yeah, when we
Like
talk about
women
stuff
are
like
more oppressed. Yeah.
trafficking and missing
Yep.
persons
And like
and
even just like feeling safe in public.
right,
Like most men don't ever have to experience what it's like to be concerned for your safety in a public space.
right,
Like that's just not a thing for most men or
right,
most people raised male in America.
right.
And that's every single female friends I have ever discussed this with. If not like oftentimes regularly or daily, but if not, they have at least experienced what it's like to feel unsafe being in a public space.
Which we can also talk about is kind of ironic because like it's mostly men who get murdered and mugged on like if we're talking like Chicago or if we're talking
Yeah.
Georgia or like Atlanta or stuff like that,
Yeah.
there's mostly guys that are getting murdered
Yeah.
from a
There's
mugging or anything.
also the
But
issue
it's also
though.
because they like fight back and then there's a
Exactly,
struggle
like,
or
that's part of the thing about it too, is, like, there are other factors at
yeah, yeah,
play
yeah.
about it, like, 'cause that's one of the issues with, like, quoting statistics,
Mhm.
especially broad, like, social statistics like that, is that there are a lot of other things at play, like you was just saying, like, men tend to fight back, so they're more likely to get murdered in a mugging situation.
Right, right, right.
Um, there's a lot of other factors in those kinds of things
Mhm.
that lead to the numbers, and trying to apply it to a single factor is problematic.
Right. Yeah, and then like correlation doesn't always equal causation and shit.
Yeah.
I know there was getting into fucking COVID statistics now as we just always seem to draw back to this, but it's always so fascinating. Somebody posted a thing that was like, uh, somebody needs to get fired because like, oh, look at Japan, they introduced ivermectin, and then like Japan's statistics went all the way down. It's like, yeah, but also Japan, and like recently, it's like, yeah, but also people are getting vaxxed more.
Yep.
They're also like being more conscious that there is a second wave, so they're doing more to like. There's also other factors that are being introduced into
Yep.
that. It doesn't always
Yep.
happen to be just one
And I
thing.
mean, my mother's an epidemiologist. Her job is to collate all of this data and then figure out how each factor like try their best to figure out how each factor affects these numbers.
Mhm,
Like that's my mom's job in the CDC.
mhm.
Back on like the whole like feminist and MRA thing too, though, is that like from my
MRE,
understanding, MRA, but yeah, from my understanding of
men
from my
ready to
understanding,
eat.
lol. My understanding of your viewpoints on things is I would define you both as an MRA and a feminist, which probably just means you're socially conscious in general. Is the thing too. Like I don't think you prioritize, as far as I'm aware, you don't prioritize one over the other or believe the other one doesn't have valid points or like the issues don't exist. I think you're just in general a socially conscious humanist. Because that is definitely a problem too with a lot of feminists is they also ignore like they'll talk about rape culture, but they ignore how the social pressures on being raised as male in a society like America creates that rape culture. And like and
Right.
how also that affects people who are raised as male and identify as male in society.
Like,
That's still an important side of the discussion, and it's still even if like statistically and based and as far as really anyone can tell, women are more oppressed. It doesn't mean men aren't oppressed. It doesn't mean there aren't these issues as well that need to be addressed as a whole in order for social progress to happen.
mhm. No, yeah. I I don't know. There's just I think about a lot of things, and I've told you what something that I do that is kind of annoying to some people is I will basically debate myself, and I'll devil's advocate just to kind of like
Oh yeah, no, I
pick people's
absolutely do that
brain.
all the time in my head. Yeah.
And then like I'll just like, well, why would it do this or why would it do that or why would it do this? And it's kind of allowed me in some ways to, I don't know if necessarily see the bigger picture, but definitely learn more about other points of view and give myself a more well-rounded uh understanding of people's
Mhm.
opinions, I guess.
I mean, that's often like a thing I have to do with like I don't define myself as an MRA. Um, like I just said with like how I view you, I define myself as just a humanist. But like that's a thing I often have to like discuss and explain and like give the perspective of to a lot of my feminist friends is like the being raised as male side of it.
Yeah.
Like oftentimes a lot of like feminist friends of mine, like I don't understand why men do this. And then I explain why they do this because of the toxic masculine the toxic masculine pressures in the culture we're raised in.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
it
I was gonna briefly touch on
not to
that.
like excuse it, but to explain these kinds of behaviors and mindsets and mentality. I
Right.
mean, like even recently the whole Sigma male thing has become a meme.
Yeah.
Like
And again, not to excuse her, but just to kind of give some insight, we talked about you briefly talked about rape culture and stuff, and like there's
yeah.
other sides to it, and it's like, and the other flip side of the rape culture is like the, um, I don't have like a word for it, but just like the anti-virgin culture for men.
Yeah.
Virginity in men is mocked, virginity in women is praised,
Yeah.
and this comes from all sides. It's not just men that mock other male virgins; it's also women who mock other male virgins.
Everyone. It's
Yeah.
just a part of our
Right.
culture that a man is lesser if he is a virgin,
Right.
regardless of age.
So, and then there's this pressure for a man to be able to know how to have sex at any point and also to be willing to have sex at any point with any woman who comes across him. That's the general understanding and the zeitgeist of like America, is that any man would have sex with any woman at any point, no matter what. And if they aren't, there's even things like where um I've seen lots of blogs where women talking to other women exclusively think that if a man does not want to have sex with his wife, that means he's cheating.
Yep.
And
Not
that
that there
is
could be, you know, other issues at play in terms of their relationship and dynamics or in his mental health or whatever other factors that could be leading to like up to leading to a lack of libido.
right. And then we also go into the idea that men can't be raped because men always want sex, therefore are always consenting to sex.
Yep. Which is
Um
absolutely untrue as well.
and the idea that an erection equals consent,
Yes.
which is just purely bullshit. That's, I mean,
Yep.
and it blows my mind that I have heard women say, or like in general, I've heard people say, an erection equals consent. But if you said the same thing, like, okay, well, if she orgasmed, that means that she consented. Like,
Yep.
that is a preposterous bullshit idea that has
Or even
no
like even in a less or even like a lesser thing of like if she was wet, she consented.
right.
Despite the fact that that is a defense mechanism in a lot of women's biology, that if they're being raped to make it less painful, they generate lubrication.
Right. And as this, it goes on to this whole like, yeah, well,
That this is probably something for like an
yeah.
entire different like
Yeah,
2 hour
I was just thinking
discussion
like it
because
has
like
been 2 hours.
there's a lot to unpack about like about like both toxic masculinity and toxic feminism in like
Yeah.
America. I mean, at the end of the day, we can really only speak in any kind of educated way towards like American culture, but
Right.
like there is a lot at play there, and there's a lot to talk about on that. And
Yeah.
all right, on that note, thank you for listening or watching the podcast.
Oh my god.
What a thing to leave on. Rape culture in America.
Rape culture in America. We start with video games. And we end with socially conscious topics
Yep.
that neither of us are probably like qualified enough to talk about. But
I mean, at the end of the day, everyone is qualified to talk about their own experiences.
yeah.
And everyone is qualified to note their observations.
Yeah.
Not everyone is qualified to make assertions based off of those,
Yeah.
what's the fuck I'm thinking of, to prescribe based on those. Like the whole like I mean both sides and every part of like the gender spectrum talk about all men are X, right? Like
Yeah.
there's all like on the masculine side, there's like the all real men, the all true men do X, and there's on the feminist
Well, no
side,
true
the
Scotsman
feminist,
Scotsman
yeah,
fallacy.
yeah, the no true Scotsman fallacy is a pervasive thing in society on every part of the gender spectrum.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah,
Well,
in
I
fact,
guess I don't know. I
yeah,
kind of got lost in a moment because obviously worse things have happened to me, but I was kind of even thinking just like the small stuff. I remember there was a woman who held me, and she would
yeah,
not let me go until I kissed her.
yeah,
I didn't want to, but she would not let me go physically because she was like 2 years older than me. I was a freshman in high school. She was a junior, and she was as tall as I was, maybe even a little bit taller, and she would not physically let me go until I kissed her. And that is sexual assault at the very very minimum.
the very least, yeah.
And this is, to some people that would be like, "Oh, that's cute. Your girlfriend wouldn't let you go until you kissed her." That's cute.
I mean, that's
That
cute when it's a consensual thing, but
you
only
know,
if it's a consensual thing.
right? And it's just
The fact that a female wanted to kiss you does not mean it's consensual.
right, right. And it's just I kind of went back in time for a minute. Was kind of reliving some of my experiences and
Yeah,
talking
I mean,
about.
I've also had some similar experiences that we can get into. Probably, I guess, in the next podcast. At this point, we might as well just fucking talk about this in the next podcast.
Yeah, if we want to.
Yep.
If people aren't like, I can't believe these two are talking about their feelings. I'm unsubscribing. I
Who
didn't
gives a fuck
subscribe
if
for
they
feelings. I
unsubscribe?
subscribed for gamer math.
Yeah, I mean, fair, but also sorry.
Out here.
This is the kind of stuff we want to talk about, and we're going to because this is our full-time jobs.
I'm creating a straw man right now. That's
Yeah,
totally
you are also creating a straw man right now. I mean, it's not a
well, also, I've also
non-existent
read our comments.
demographic.
I've also read our
Exactly.
comments,
You
so I
read
know
our, you
that's
read our comments, so yeah.
I know that's absolutely within the realm of possibility. I actually
Yep.
deleted a comment yesterday.
Yep.
And I never delete comments, but on the podcast video that you did, they were like, just a reminder not to listen to these guys because they're talking about speedrunning and end game 20-second clears, and none of their opinions matter to an average player, etc., etc., etc. Raiden's perfectly fine. She can do whatever you need, whatever. They're purely speaking from a hyper optimized, and it doesn't apply to. And I'm like, delete. It's fucking
That's
delete.
that's literally like saying LeBron James' opinion on basketball doesn't matter.
Right.
Like that's like saying an Olympian's opinion on their sport doesn't matter.
Right.
Like saying that the top level doesn't matter to a casual enjoyer is incredibly reductive.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I'm pretty sure we're over 2 hours at this point, and I
Yeah.
got stuff to do, so we'll end the podcast
Yeah,
here.
and I ended my run on balloons. I
Yeah.
wasn't paying attention and lost to round 200. Oops.
Yep. It's but yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, on YouTube. Guys and gals and people of all gender identities and whatnot on YouTube.
And
I
thank
feel
you
like
very
I
much.
always have to like preface. I always have to like qualify that because to me, guys is a gender neutral pronoun, but I know it's not to everyone.
Oh yeah, no, I use it. I use
Guys and
guys,
dude
bros.
guys, yeah, guys and dudes.
Yeah,
Guys and
dudes.
dude is like
It's
they're
completely
both
gender neutral to me. And I've
me,
actually,
but
while I was playing Final Fantasy, somebody got pissed off at me for calling them a dude. I'm like,
mhm,
it's dude. I don't know. You're a dude. He's a dude. She's a dude. Yay.
yeah, they're a dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Kuro, thank you very much for the 10. Toxie Moxie, thank you very much for the 32 person raid. And Migo, thank you for the raid and the subscription as well. Really appreciate it, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yep. Much
And
appreciated.
thank you to the Patreons who are still patroned. And thank you for everybody who watches and hangs out and stuff. And hopefully we can see a little bit more of you um, before it all goes to hell. But
Yep. All right. Bye, guys.
bye.
Bye.